Joining us today. My name is Mary Shepard, and I'm the Executive Director here at the Southwest Colorado Small Business Development Center. We are part of the Colorado Small Business Development Network. There are 15 SBDC centers here in the state of Colorado under the Office of Economic Development and International Trade, and we are a national program under the Small Business Administration, the SBA. And our mission is to provide technical assistance to small businesses in our communities, and that includes no-cost consulting and free or low-cost trainings and workshops. And we've been working really hard. I think the beauty of the Colorado network, and it's not true in every state, is that we really do operate as a network. We have 15 center directors and our team up in Denver, and we are meeting multiple times a week right now, as we have been for the last several months, to make sure that we are really aligning all of our programs, sharing all of our resources, and making sure that we are getting what you guys need to you as quickly as we can. So I'm really excited because David is joining us today from the Colorado District Office. I'll introduce him here in a minute. Also my team, Hannah Birdsong Fetters and Kiki Hooten. Hannah is my program manager here at the SBDC. Kiki is joining us through the CARES Act through September as our disaster recovery coordinator across the 5 counties. And I will say we cover the 5 counties and 2 Native American tribes here in Southwest Colorado. So if that is where you are located, you are welcome to come in and take advantage of our services. If you are not, we can find you your SBDC. So Hannah, go ahead to the next slide. This is the program we're offering today. The new small business grant program is What We Know Now. And we know from last time that it is a little bit of a moving target. And that's because we know that the government knows that businesses need this funding now. They don't need it after we've taken the time to really put everything down in final permanent ink. So this is what we went through last time. There are still some moving targets. There are still some decisions we're waiting on, some final guidance, but we're going to give you what we know now. Okay. So next slide, please. So this is kind of what we're going to do this morning, and I'm going to have a hard time getting my 15 minutes in 15 minutes, so I'm going to try and move really quickly. But together with David Benavides, our SBA Lender Relations Specialist up in Denver, we are going to try and go through PPP, EIDL, a couple other things that are coming out of the SBA. We'll do some Q&A. I know that's really important. And then we'll transition over, and at that point, David, if you need to go, we will let you run, but we'll move over into the money that's coming out of the state of Colorado under the Business Relief Funding Act. So both what La Plata and what Archuleta County are doing, what that process looks like, how do you apply, who does that apply to? And again, for some of you, we'll talk quickly about who that applies to. Sorry, I got distracted by a question. Who that applies to, and if it doesn't apply to you, if you are not one of the businesses that can apply for that, feel free to drop off whenever you have received the information that you needed. Okay, Hannah, next slide. And David, I welcome you to jump in, unmute yourself, and correct me or add anything. You may know more than I do at this point. Okay, so we know that in the most recent act, the Economic Aid Recovery Act, another $284 billion was earmarked for a kind of a second round of PPP. We do know that there are some set-asides in this money. This time they really want to make sure this money is landing with the businesses that need it the most. So we saw what happened in the first round. The big businesses who had the resources jumped on this quickly. We want to make sure that in this round it's more fairly dispersed. So there are some set-asides and some rules around smaller lenders. So our community development funds, so banks like First Southwest here down here in Southwest Colorado are going to be able to start the process a few days before the general bank public. There's also some special set-asides for smaller businesses. So if you have 10 or less employees, or if you're in low to moderate income census tracts, there's going to be some set-aside money. Those loans have a smaller limit than the kind of general pool, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. And yes, First Southwest Bank is already making those loans. And I've seen some of the businesses I know already posting on their Facebook pages that they have got their applications in and they're already moving forward. So First Southwest Bank is still taking applications. And we'll talk about whether you should go to the bank you went to for your first round or look to work with a new bank. And that's a choice you'll have to make. Okay, so again, so they're really looking at some of these smaller community financial institutions, but it will be opening up. And then PPP will open to all lenders. It'll remain open until March 31st of 2021, or as we've seen, until they have fully used that $284 billion. There are 2 interim final rules on SBA.gov's website. So they have consolidated all of the interim final rules from the first CARES Act funding. So all of those things that were coming out are all under one IFR. You can go look at that. And then there's a newer, shorter one for the new second round. It's a really good place to go and just kind of page through. If you need help finding the section with the answers to what you're asking, let us know. Okay, Hannah, move to the next slide. Okay, so what's the same? It is very similar to the first program. No fees, 100% guarantee on these loans, no collateral, no personal guarantee. It's a 1% interest rate for a 5-year term after the after the 10-month deferral period. It's 10 months, right, David? You can nod or shake your head. Okay, it is. And you apply through an SBA lender. So with the new PPP, you're going to the banks. You're not going directly to the SBA. There are other programs you will go directly to SBA for, but not PPP. 1 PPP per EIN number. So as in first draw and second draw, they're going by EIN number. There will be some opportunities for some businesses that have multiple locations that are operating under their own EIN to apply for individual PPPs. Ineligible for the new PPP money. If you weren't eligible the first time, there's a chance you won't be. There's a little bit of new eligibility. We'll talk about that. But you have to have been in business on or before February 15th of 2020. You cannot be a publicly traded business. If lobbying is a substantial part of what you do, you are not going to be eligible. A little bit of lobbying, okay. Businesses that are registered under the Foreign Agents Act, or if you're under China or Hong Kong. So, if you're concerned about that, let us know. We can set you up with someone to look at that. Specific political figures and spouses. So if you are a Congress member, a president, or a vice president of the United States, your businesses will not be eligible. And then specific types of businesses, and those are listed on the site, but they mainly, if you're in a marijuana business, if you are in finance, if you are, there's a number of businesses. I don't have them all listed here, but they were the same businesses that were not eligible businesses in round 1. So what's new? Well, we'll talk about what's new. Go ahead, Hannah, move to the next. Key updates. So some of the key updates is, and I think this is not my most recent one. Hannah, can you confirm? Is this the most recent one?
It should be.
Okay. Okay. Well, I feel like, okay. So PPP borrowers in the second round actually can choose their length that they want the PPP to cover, and it can be anywhere between the 8 and 24 weeks. First round, if you're still a first draw, you will choose 8 or 24 weeks. They have expanded the uses under the operations expenditures to include more operating expenses. So it's not quite so strict in how you use the funding. The eligibility has now been expanded to include the 501c6s, so housing cooperatives, destination marketing organizations, some news agencies, among other types of organizations, are now eligible. So if they did not get one under CARES Act because they were not eligible, they now may go and do a first draw PPP, and those are open right away. There is greater flexibility in determining how you choose your payroll for seasonal businesses. And so important is that certain PPP borrowers that had a first round draw for PPP can now go back and adjust or modify their first draw or reapply. So if you received a PPP and then returned it, if you received a PPP and then the rules changed and you could have asked for more, as long as you have not already gone through the forgiveness process, you could go back to your bank and ask them to modify your first round, or you can reapply under the first round rules. And now certain PPP borrowers, if you had a first round PPP, can go ahead and apply for a second round. Okay, Hannah, go to the next slide. Okay. So if in the first round you used an agent to file your PPP, and that was covered by your PPP loan proceeds, Yep. You may not do that this time. So only the banks can use the funding to pay for agents. Clients cannot. So do know that you'll have to cover those costs on your own. And so for PPP applicants, you may choose to go back to your original bank, or you may look at one of the community development funds this time around. So, really take a look at what makes the most sense. In some cases, if you've had a good relationship with your lender and they're ready to go on this next round, it might be just as quick because they have all your information, they've worked with you already, to be able to just continue to work with that bank. Okay. And we will get to questions when we get to the end of this. So we're watching your questions come in. Okay. If this is your first PPP loan, so you are going to be applying under pretty much the terms of the original CARES Act. So they've just reopened it for you. Same as before, it's a 60-40 split. Again, there are some additional allowances as far as what is in the 60% and the 40%. So there's more expenses under both payroll and under operating expenses that you can use those funds for and still receive full forgiveness. So you can look through there, and then it's still the 2.5 average monthly payroll using either 2019 or 2020 calendar year. So you will take the year, divide, your payroll, divide by 12 and come up with an average monthly, and then you'll get 2.5 times that number in your PPP. Again, if you returned part of your PPP or didn't accept your PPP or the rules updated on you, so if you didn't receive kind of owner money for PPP, you can now go back and have that kind of re-looked at, and they should be able to true up your PPP and bring you to that full amount that you could now be eligible for. And that might be the way you want to go. You may just want to go ahead and apply for a second, as long as you have, okay, so go to the next slide. As long as you've spent down your first time. So, so in this round, if you're a first draw, you get to choose 8 or 24 weeks. Forgiveness has been streamlined for many borrowers. So they have a one-page forgiveness application for loans under 150,000. They are asking you to attest in that application that you made this application because the unknown conditions caused by the pandemic caused you economic uncertainty in your business. You will have to attest to that. So, but it's a pretty simplified process. So LOAM. Okay, changes in calculation of the loan amount for farmers and ranchers. So going forward, you will be able to use a gross income instead of a net profit. They will have a specific application for these borrowers, and the farm credit unions are being added. Is that correct, David? I see you smiling. Let me know and feel free to jump in. So specific application for these borrowers, and farm credit unions are being added into the banks that are able to make these loans. And then there's some, as we said, there's some new eligibility. So if you're a 501c6, if you are a housing co-op, some other organizations that are now eligible as long as they have a kind of a limited amount of lobbying involved in what they do. Okay, next slide. So what's new this time? They have eliminated the economic injury disaster loan advance reduction from the forgiveness amount. So if you have already applied for forgiveness and that money was reduced from your forgiveness amount, go back to your bank. They are going to be working on making those right so that you will be refunded that money. So if you did receive the EIDL advance, it no longer reduces your forgiveness amount. And then again, the do-over provisions for loans that were returned in part or full. So if you did not accept your full amount, you can go back and true those up. Okay, next slide. Eligibility for the second round. So if you already had a PPP and you still need a PPP, this is where you're going to fall in. You do not have to have applied for forgiveness yet. You do have to have spent down all of your first round PPP, or will have spent it all down before you can receive this funding. But there are some changes in eligibility. So now it's 300 and fewer employees. So in first round, it's 500. This round, it's 300. You must have received your full first round PPP. In this round, you will have to prove a 25% decline in revenue in any single quarter in 2020 compared to the same quarter in 2019. So if your first round PPP was under 150,000, You will not be asked to prove that up front, but you will have to prove that for forgiveness. So make sure that you are going to be able to prove that at forgiveness. I don't want anybody taking this money and then finding out it's not going to be forgivable. You must not be permanently closed. If you had to temporarily close, and this can get you up and running again, that's you're still eligible, but you do have to return to operation and bring your employees back. And then ultimately, lenders are looking for long-term viability. Okay, go ahead, Hannah, next one. There are set-asides in this round, $25 billion for entities with 10 or fewer employees, as well as businesses in low to moderate income tracts. This pool of money, you can only receive up to $250,000 for your second PPP. The maximum loan amount in the second round in your second draw is $2 million per business or $4 million per organization. And again, if you are an organization that has multiple locations under individual EINs, each business can get up to $2 million, but the total you can get across your organization is $4 million. We are again using the 2.5 months of average annual payroll. But if you are NAICS code 72, which is restaurants and hospitality, you will be able to use 3.5 times your payroll. And then in this round, businesses get to choose any term between 8 and 24 weeks to spend that funding down. So it's not 8 or 24 weeks. It's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you get it. So you've got some flexibility in the length of time that you're going to use to use these proceeds. And you can use the same bank that you went to the first round, or you can choose a new bank. You're not required to go back to your original bank. Okay, next slide. Some clarifications came out. Expenses paid with PPP proceeds are now tax deductible. So previously they had said if you used PPP, you could not use those as deductions against income. You now can. So talk to your CPAs. EIDL advance grant does not reduce your PPP forgiveness. When we're going to talk about SBA debt relief loan payments, so those are with other SBA loan programs, we are still waiting further guidance on the tax status of those loan payments that were made on your behalf. And then EIDL borrowers can apply for PPP and vice versa. The one rule is just that you cannot duplicate use of funds. So if you get both PPP and EIDL, you're going to have to show that you use that money to pay for different things. Okay, EIDL, we're going to go quickly through this. That is reopened. It is now extended through the end of 2021. There's an allocation of an additional $20 billion targeted to EIDL advance for entities in low to moderate income tracts. I did talk to Region 9 per previous. Just kind of general, we are usually included in that low to moderate income tracts. We'll see if that applies. They have not really given us full guidelines on that. You don't have to reapply. So if you have an EIDL or had an EIDL or you're in the process of applying, again, you don't have to reapply. If you were declined, if you refused it, and you still have that loan number, you can go through the reconsideration website and ask to have it relooked at. So take a look at that. Even if you said, oh, they offered you 30,000, you said, well, we're more comfortable with 15, and now you're like, no, we really want the 30. Go back and see if you can have that reconsidered. I think you've got about 6 months in that process, but you don't necessarily have to start from scratch. One EIDL per disaster. So if you already have received an EIDL and you've gotten the maximum amount, you can't apply again for a second EIDL for this disaster. If we have a drought or a fire, certainly you can. And then low-income communities, the and we don't know what that's going to look like, but they're saying the EIDL advance will be made whole. So if you remember when EIDL originally came out, they were saying $10,000 advance for businesses, and that changed because of the amount of funding that we had in that pot to say that you would get up to $10,000, $1,000 per employee. Well, now they're saying that Congress is saying that wasn't their intention, and so they're looking at how and what and who might be able to get that money that you receive. So if you're a 3-person business and you got 3,000 and you fit this, you might be able to make that whole up to 10,000 again. So more on that when we have that. Next slide. SBA core programs, and this is something I really want to talk about because it's important to be looking at. If what you want to do, if you're looking for funding and it isn't a PPP or an EIDL, but you're growing or expanding or moving into something else and you're looking for funding, that's still there. And SBA is making it really sweet right now to go out there and borrow some money for some of the things you want to do. One thing I will say, the 8A program, they are going to be issuing 1-year extensions. So if you need an extension because this was the end of your 8A program, you get an extra year this year. There are, again, some core finance incentives. I'm not going to get into it in detail, but call me. I'm happy, or email me. I'm happy to send you what those look like. Some increased amounts, higher guarantees, no lender or borrower fees on SBA loans right now. So yeah, now's the time. Also, and this is exciting, if you already had an SBA loan, for a 7A or one of their other loan programs, they've been, in the first round under CARES Act, SBA made principal and interest payments through September. So not deferred it, they made your payments for you. They are now going to do that for another 3 months for all of their current borrowers, up to $9,000 per month. And if you go out, and for some, there may be, if there's money still in the pot, there may be another 5 months if you're in, again, a low to moderate income track. So there may even be 5 more months than that. But if you are looking for money right now and you go out and get an SBA loan and it is approved and dispersed between February 1st and September 30th, you're going to get 6 months from whenever that starts. So even if it's the middle of September, you get an SBA loan, it'll be 6 months from that date, and they will pay your interest and payments. So, if you need money, this could be the time to do that. Okay, next slide. Okay, so Shuttered Venue Act. This came out and was kind of pulled into the Economic Aid Act with the new PPP, but it is its own program. It will be a direct through SBA, similar to PPP uses. It's really for museums and venues and, sorry, I'm getting spammed. So if you are an entertainment venue, this is another option. You cannot also get a new PPP. If you already had a PPP, it won't prevent you from getting shuttered venue. You cannot apply now for a first round PPP or a second round if you're going to go with shuttered venue. So look at both programs, and they're going to work on a priority system based on your percentage of revenue loss. So if you lost 90% or more revenue in 2020, because you've been closed this entire time, they're going to start with those venues, and then they're going to move down the line to 70%, 50%. So take a look at both programs. You may, and I shouldn't say this, but you could look at starting talking about the PPP with your bank, getting your application ready, and while you were waiting on what this is going to look like, how much money you might be able to get, and then, decide which one makes the most sense for your business. Okay, next slide. Okay, and then employee retention credits. I'm not going to go into this in detail. There's 3 slides on it. We're going to kind of fly through the 3 slides. So you guys can read this. So 2020, there were, they put this program in place. Next slide. In this new act, they've changed the rules a little. So it may be sweeter than it was. And then next slide. I sat down for a half an hour and talked to ASAP accounting, and my key takeaway was, if you haven't already applied for forgiveness on your first round and you've got employees, talk to your CPA and make a strategy, because you may want to alter your PPP forgiveness application so that you can maximize some of these employee retention credits as well. So, definitely take a look at them if you think that they might apply to you, because you can get both. You can have PPP and on any employment expenses or employment that you have outside of what you paid for with PPP, you might be able to also employ this program. Okay, next slide. Yay, we're at questions. So David, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself. And Hannah, let's go ahead and start looking at some of the questions in the chat. So do you want to read them to us, or I can read them?
Well,
okay.
I think that, because we got the first one from Book, who asked about the Bank of the San Juans. I will tell everybody that today all the other banks are getting notifications through the bankers associations, the Colorado bankers or whatever, that the portal is now open for them all. So when we talked about community banks and we talked about CDFIs and CDCs getting the first shot at this, we are now opening up the portal for everybody else. So starting tomorrow, all the other financial institutions will be able to submit PPP second round loans. So that where the question was, should I wait or should I not wait? I will tell you that remember, the one thing key is, if you applied for the first round of PPP through a financial institution, they can use those same figures that you did the first round to apply for the second draw. So if you want to make it easier for yourself, go through the same financial institution you did before, although you're not limited to that. If you'd rather go through somebody else, then you're more than welcome to go that route and pick a second financial institution if you want to do that. But yes, the portal will be open as of tomorrow for all banks to start submitting those applications.
Thanks, David. Okay, so Brian Rose had a question. He spoke to a bank that was looking at net income for 2019 divided by 12. Brian, I'm assuming that that is probably sole proprietor or contract employee, and that would be how they would make that calculation. So as a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, or if you're being taxed on your net income as employment, through your estimated taxes, then that's the number that they're going to use for your payroll. But I would imagine if you're an S Corp or you have actual payroll, they're going to be looking at your W-2 payroll expenses, and then same thing dividing by 12. Is that correct, David?
Correct. It's whatever you are actually paying IRS taxes on is what they use for the calculation.
Right. And so we've seen that. I will tell you, I've seen a number of businesses that are not paying themselves. They're S Corps, so whether they own rental properties or they've set it up so that they're not paying themselves any W-2 wages, and they're not eligible.
They're correct. They are not. If you're doing a draw or anything like that, anything that you are not actually reporting as earned income or through your IRS tax forms, that's not eligible for the PPP. You have to be. Right. It has to be something you're reporting as wages and you're paying IRS taxes on.
Okay. So Southwest, let's see. Okay, so I've got a question here. This might be the one you just answered. No. So you said they're opening tomorrow. So Brooke, you're good to go ahead and just continue to work with the bank that you're working with. And they should be ready to go. And if you have any questions about that, let us know. Or if they have any questions, we can set them up with SBA Lender Relations Specialist to make sure that they are up and ready to go. Okay, so we just kind of answered this, Kathy, but if you are, you're self-employed, generally speaking, unless you're an S Corp, you are paying estimated taxes on employment taxes on your entire net income, and that's why they use that net income number. So we'd have to take a look at how you're filing to tell you what would be eligible to include in that calculation. And then the 8 or 24-week covered period, I would imagine that most people who are sole proprietors are going to choose the 8-week period. It really depends on how you're going to be able to keep or how you're going to be able to get yourself back to full employment, because there are some rules on making sure you're returning to full employment. And for some businesses, they needed more time, I think, to restaff up and get themselves to that full operational period. And David, jump in if I'm misconstruing this, but a lot of the smaller businesses I saw, the 8-week period made more sense because they just took their money, they paid themselves for 8 weeks, that extra 0.5 they used as to pay their expenses, and it worked out perfectly. So that's really a question you'll probably want to talk to either the bank or come talk to us. We're happy to run that with you as well. Okay, so it is true that you cannot get both PPP and the shuttered venue monies. That said, if you already had a PPP and you've already spent it, that will not prevent you from applying for shuttered venue. You cannot now get a first round or a second round PPP if you think shuttered venue is the way you want to go.
Correct. And Mary, I will tell you that the SBA is doing a webinar tomorrow on the shuttered venues. Yes. And I will send that to you and Hannah so that you can put it out to everybody else.
We will put it out today.
Yeah, they can look at it and they can determine whether shuttered venue or PPP works more advantageous for them, and they can choose.
Yep, and it'll come down to what you use the money for and what you're allowed to use it for and how much you think you can get. So you'll want to run some calculations. Okay, so can the PPP apply to costs incurred after the first round was over, such as October of 2020? I believe that you use the PPP money to cover costs starting the day that you get the disbursement. Is that correct, David? You can't use it for past expenses.
Correct. It's from the time it's dispersed going forward.
Okay. Okay, so I have a small web business here in Durango. We have been in business for 10 years. I work with independent contractors. Owners get guaranteed payments. May I be eligible for any of these new programs? Again, I think it comes down to what, your independent contractors will have to apply on their own. You cannot include them in your calculation. And it just depends on how you pay yourself. And if you're including that as payroll with IRS, are you paying employment tax on that? Are you paying Social Security, Medicare tax on that amount of money? So we'd have to look at your numbers. Again, feel free to call us. We can sit you down pretty quickly with one of our consultants, and they can take a look at it and let you know what they think. You can also just go straight to the bank probably and speak with them, and they can clarify for you pretty quickly. Okay, so Brian Rose said she says she has an employee, didn't clarify it was an LLC. Okay, again, Brian, I don't know how she's paying that employee. Is that employee potentially maybe she's doing a 1099 on that employee? But I would imagine that they would be looking at both. They should be looking, if you have payroll expenses and a net income that you're paying self-employment tax on, it should be both of those things together. So that's something that we can have them come in and take a look. Okay. David, can you talk about using an agent and what that means?
Absolutely. In the first round of PPP, we had business owners that were looking at different agents that would send them mass emails saying, hey, we'll help you get your PPP, just fill out this. And then in the end, the agent was then going to the bank and saying, hey, we filled out the paperwork. We would like a refund on the money that we did. The rule now is, and what has changed to in the legislation is, the only way an agent can get paid is if the bank is the one that hires the agent. So if the bank has an agent and they tell business owners to go to them to fill out paperwork, then PPP, the bank can actually pay the agent money. If a borrower goes and looks for an agent to fill out paperwork and all that, the bank does not have to pay the agent, does not have to refund the agent, does not have to pay them at all. And the other part of it is no proceeds from the PPP can be used to pay an agent. That's not operating expenses. So if a business owner uses an agent to fill out paperwork and help them calculate the 2.5 months or the 3.5 months, they're going to have to pay that out of their own pocket because the bank's not going to pay it, and they can't use PPP funds to pay that either.
Okay, thank you for clarifying on that. And, we would say SBDC is here. So if you need some assistance or have some questions, you can certainly come to us and it won't cost you anything to do that. Okay, next question. What if a business did not get the first draw because the funds ran out, and now the business is selling its assets and a new owner takes over? So the business is still the same business, but now it's got a new EIN. Can the new owner apply for, they're continuing the DBA, but it's under a new EIN. Can they still apply using the numbers from the previous business?
I will tell you that there are some rules as far as selling and purchasing businesses. I will say that the payroll factor for the prior business, because it was an existing business, comes into play on that. So if you are somebody who's acquiring a business or purchasing a business, just go to the bank, fill out the application, send it in, let the SBA come back and say whether or not that's eligible or not. Don't eliminate yourself in the process. That'll be determined with us through our service center. So go ahead and do it. Go ahead and apply for it, and then let us determine whether that's going to be eligible or not.
And I would imagine there'd be some calculation there where they're looking at to see if employees transferred over. So they're probably looking at your payroll and who's on your payroll, and it's the same staff, then maybe you've got a chance of kind of proving that. Okay. So I am paying IRS taxes. I got the first round of EIDL and personally PPP as an owner. So if you did get a PPP in the first round, then yes, you can apply for a second PPP. Sam, I'm trying to remember what your question was. Let me roll back a little. So yeah, I mean, let me go back to where you are now. So you got a first round EIDL. So you can't get a second EIDL. Potentially on the EIDL Advanced, depending on where you're located and what those rules are, you might be able to, if you didn't get the full 10,000, you might be able to get the full 10,000. And then if you had a PPP, then you should be able to apply again for a second PPP. So if there's more to that question, by all means, just call us or set yourself up for an appointment and come on in. Okay, so next question. I understand that the shuttered venue act must go directly through SBA. Also, is it possible to apply for that yet? I don't believe it's open.
No, actually that is not opened up yet. We are still waiting like tomorrow for our introduction to it. And then they will announce when they anticipate that portal being open, but it will be through our disaster loan center that those get applied for.
Awesome. And again, someone asked, what is the shuttered venue? Shuttered venue is specific to entertainment venues that have been closed. So think of really any theater, any music venue, any museum, any entertainment venue that has not been able to operate because of the rules around COVID. So if you fall into that and you have been closed for all or any of 2020, you could potentially apply for that, but you cannot also get a PPP. So you want to make sure that it makes the most sense. Okay, what about rents impacted by COVID? Are there programs for landlords and renters?
If your business is a small business and you are actually a renter of some sort, if it qualifies under the small business statute, then you can apply for PPP based on your actual income that you paid yourself. There is nothing out there that will replenish the losses for lost income as far as rent not being paid or leases not being paid. But as far as a small business owner, you can apply for a PPP based on your wages. But there's nothing out there that's going to pay for you not receiving rent or lease payments from your lease people.
And I will say that that is one of the types of businesses that I've seen, people who are, it is a business and they are living off of the proceeds of, these houses or apartments that they have. It depends on how you set up your business. So if you've got
Correct.
it set up where you're making, basically it's considered investment income because you've got it set up as an S Corp and you're not actually set up to pay yourself a W-2 wage, there isn't a lot out there for you. And it's really unfortunate because I know that it is, there are a lot of people out there who are struggling with that one. But if you've got it set up so that it's investment income and you are not using it as kind of payroll income, then there really isn't an avenue forward with these programs. Okay, so someone asked if our first PPP is already forgiven, can you apply again? Absolutely. You don't have to have it forgiven, but you certainly can. You can also go back if you think that you could have gotten more. Well, no, if it's forgiven, just go ahead and apply for second round. Okay, do these businesses that are applying for a first time have to show the 25% reduction? You do not. You are under the first round rules. So you do not have to show that 25% reduction. You will have to certify that you require this money because of the uncertain economic conditions that it affected your business. So again, it's you, especially if it's under 150,000, you're just certifying that you say that you need this, but you will not have to bring in financials and prove that loss. Okay, is that true, David?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is the end of my questions right now. So
Hey, Mary,
I don't want to keep moving on this.
There's some questions in the Q&A
section.
There's 14.
Oh boy. Okay, sorry, I was looking under chat. Okay, so we'll do this quickly because I know we have more. Has the actual guidance on this been released? So that's for Southwest Bank, and I'm wondering which guidance. So
our interim
7A
final
incentives, that is. Has the actual guidance been on that, David?
Our interim final rules are out there on the website, but those are things that have not actually gone through and become law legislation side, but it's what we're operating on right now with the banks and all that are published on our website if you want to go and look them.
Okay, and obviously Steve White for the bank is probably a good person to go start talking about what those 7A incentives are going to be. Okay, we weren't the owners in February and the business is still the same. Does that mean we don't qualify? We just talked about that. So I'm going to consider that one answered. But if you are a new owner and you have access to the financials and the payroll from the previous owner, David's suggestion was apply and let SBA take a look at it. Don't count yourself out. Okay, I run a nonprofit 501c3 that launched in January of 2020. We fundraised our operating budget before COVID hit, and I'm unable to prove lost income, despite our lack of ability to continue fundraising through in-person events. Do you have any recommendations on our eligibility for PPP or EIDL? So PPP first round, you don't have to show that loss of income. So Haley, if you did not apply in first round, then you can go ahead and apply for first round. EIDL, David, do you have to be able to show that loss?
You have to be able to show a loss between Yes, you have to be able to show you actually had an impact from the disaster.
Can you use first quarter 2021 against first quarter 2020 for in this case? So if she now can't fundraise, can she wait till March and then apply for EIDL?
Well,
I know PPP will be closed, but
yeah, yes. Again, I go back to the part of because the EIDL is handled through our disaster loan center. To show the impact of loss, if you, since they opened in January, if showing a loss prior year is probably going to be a little difficult. But again, like I tell everybody, go ahead and put it in. Let us work you through that. Let us help you through it. If it isn't eligible, then there's nothing lost there. But at least put it in and let us take a look at it.
okay, perfect. Carolyn, is the up to 10K forgivable EIDL advance still available who never applied for it? I believe that's true, but I don't know if they're ready for that.
Yeah, if you never applied for the economic injury disaster loan, when you apply, that box is there that for the advance. Just click the box, and that makes you eligible for the advance.
Cool. How do I reapply for the Schedule F changes? Do I ask my bank?
Correct. You go to the bank and you work with them as far as any advances, right, or actually any increases that you think that you needed because your income was not reported correctly.
So we received PPP for LLC single proprietor in 2020, and it was forgiven. Am I correct that to be eligible for a new PPP, I have to have proof of 1 quarter of 2020? Yes. If you're applying for second round, so you already had a PPP and you've spent it all, and you're coming for a second round, you have to be able to show a 25% reduction to revenue for 1 quarter of 2020 over the same quarter in 2019 to be eligible. Again, they'll let you apply if it's small, but it will affect your forgiveness. So make sure you can prove that. Okay, is the $1,000 they're saying we owe back from the first round of PPP forgivable now under the New CARES Act? Yes. So if you already went back and they deducted your EIDL advance from your PPP forgiveness, your bank is going to have to fix that, and they're working on it. So communicate with your bank.
Correct. But I will just throw out there though that $1,000 that they say they're not forgiven so far. If that was due to the advance, then yes, that will be made correct, and that will do that. But if the $1,000 was due that the funds were not used for what they were intended, and that's why the $1,000 was there, then that loan's going to stay intact.
Right. Okay. But you can still apply for a second round, even if you had a balance on your first round, right? Okay. And is the second round 100% forgivable?
It
Sole
is.
proprietor, one employee. Yep. So under the same rules, you have to spend it the way, by the rules. And if you spend it according to the rules and in the right amounts, then you should get 100% forgiveness. Okay. For FTE counts, is it the count when they apply for the second round or their full staffing pre-COVID?
It is the average staffing prior to the disaster.
Okay. EIDL advance was deducted from my first PPP. Yes. Go back to the bank. So we answered that one. Yep. And Carl, if you have already gone through a bank for your first PPP, it's going to be a lot quicker, and they're all opening in the next couple of days to those applications. So I would go back to your first bank. To be used for salary and operations, Haley, yes, I have to go back to your first question. Sorry, let me just scroll back. Yeah, I mean, all of these have to be used for, where's Haley? Have to be used for payroll and operations based on the rules. So you'd have to be able to, and that's how they'll calculate it. Okay, we're a restaurant S Corp that received PPP in the first round at 2.5 with 9 full-time employees. We have not filed for forgiveness yet. Our full-time has dropped to 4, staffing to business levels. Can we apply for second draw at 3.5, the 4, or do we have to go back to the original numbers?
It is average employees prior to the disaster, but I will.
But can they use 2020 numbers? I thought they could use 2020 numbers.
I will share there are a bunch of safe harbors that are built into this as far as hiring and whether or not you have to get to that level or not. I would recommend that you reach out to us, and we'll walk through the safe harbor and take that number and show you where you would actually end up having to be at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who can help with that? So if that client comes to me and wants help, do I connect them with you? Or how do you want me to?
You can connect them with me. The easier way to do it is just send it to stephen.white@sba.gov. He actually
Okay.
will farm those out to either myself or Bob Martin.
Okay.
But if we start with him, then that's a good place to go, because then he'll share the wealth on that.
Okay, thank you. So Todd asked, how concerned are we about second round of PPP funds will run out? My bank seems slow. Again, depending on the size of your business, if you're 10 or fewer employees, there are some set aside money this time. They're really trying not to let it be a grab by the most prepared and largest businesses. That said, we've said it, it's until March 31st or the funds are gone. What are your thoughts on that, David?
You're right, March 31st until the funds are gone. But I will tell you, when we did the second round of PPP the last time, we did not run out of money. The money was still there.
And there's some more systems in place for second round. I mean, not all the businesses that applied first round are going to be able to apply second round because they're not going to be able to show that 25% loss in any quarter. So that's going to help significantly. But I would say the most important thing is for you to be ready and have everything ready to go. So when their system is up, you can just plug it in and go. And feel free, it doesn't hurt maybe to make a phone call, but you don't want to, the one thing you don't want to do is be playing that game where you've got lots of banks going at the same time, because it can lock up your EIN. And we've seen that too, where businesses are playing that game and then all of a sudden their EIN is locked and they get kind of locked out and the SBA has to go in the background. So just be careful of that game as well. Okay, so I think we've now answered all the questions, Hannah, if I'm correct. And I don't want to, I want to keep moving. So we're going to go ahead and say thank you to David. And again, if anybody has more questions, reach out to SBA. If we need to connect you with David or Steven or somebody up at SBA, we will do that. We have that access. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and let you go.
Well, the only thing I will share
Yes.
as I finish up here is, yes, reach out. Obviously, my name's on the screen. So it's david.benavides@sba.gov. But the other part of it is don't forget that our resource partners and the SBDC, Mary and her staff, are always there to help you. Reach out to them, as they are our first line of for all this. So don't forget, the SBDC is there. That's why they do this. And reach out to Mary and her staff. And again, we are always here to help you with anything you need. I will hang on here for a while and see where we go from here.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So moving on, Hannah, do you want to put up our presentation again? The next thing that we wanted to talk about, and again, this is for very specific businesses. So if you don't fall into this pool, thank you for joining us today, and reach out to us if you have further questions. But we're going to now talk about the Business Relief Fund that came out of the state of Colorado. And to be able to be eligible, that is money that came from the state, was passed down to the counties that applied for it. And you had to have been in red. So the only two counties in our territory were Archuleta and Plata at that time. And it's for specific industries. So I know that the La Plata application is live. So I'm going to turn that over to both Emily and Anna. So Emily Bell is the managing director at Local First. They're going to be overseeing that application process. And Anna Abdo is with the La Plata County. And she is, tell me your title, Anna. I'm sorry, you're like the finance director or the?
Assistant Finance Director, but responsible grant administrator. That's how I call it.
Awesome. And thank you both so much for joining us. And then I'm going to just be quiet here and I'm going to let you guys take it from here.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, I mean, that was such helpful information for all of us, so really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here so that you can all see our slideshow. Move some things around here. Okay, so hopefully that's coming through for everybody. Let me know if it's not. So I'm Emily Bell, Managing Director for Local First, and then Anna is here as well to answer some of the more technical questions if anything comes up as we're walking through our presentation. So this is the La Plata County Direct Relief Fund, and as Mary said, applications are currently open. So I'm going to walk through an overview of what the program is and then all of the details you need to know in order to apply. Okay, so as Mary said, this came down from our state Senate. So they wrote the legislation. It was passed at the end of last year. the funding is coming through the state to our county in Plata, and then Local First is administering those funds. And we really want to make it clear that this is not a first come, first serve application. You have until February 1st, which is our deadline, to apply, and all applications will be considered, and the funding will be dispersed equitably based on how many applications are received. And so the timeline, applications are open as of Monday through February 1st at 5 p.m. So at the end of the business day. And then 2 kind of key dates just to keep in mind. The state has not finalized the funding that they're allocating to each county. So we don't know how big our pot of money is for La Plata yet. We'll know that number on Friday, so on January 15th. But, we will keep you posted. Those who apply, you'll be in the loop if there's anything that we need to communicate with you from the state. And then the other, important date to know is that all of this funding has to be dispersed by February 12th. So it's a quick turnaround. We're encouraging all applicants to get in their applications as soon as possible so that we're not, having to scramble to get additional documents from you. Submit as soon as you can, and then we'll be in touch if we need anything additional. So the intent of this funding, and this is what Mary was talking about in terms of this being really specific to certain industries, this is direct relief for small businesses located in La Plata County that have had severe capacity restrictions and public health orders related to COVID-19. So the industries that are eligible are restaurants and caterers, bars, movie theaters, fitness and recreational sports centers. So that's really that's set down by the state. We don't have much flexibility there, but we encourage everyone who has a business in those industries to apply. And then there are also specific grant award tiers. So there's a cap on the amount of award we can give to each business. And so all of this is based on your receipts from 2019. So before the pandemic, at the end of the year 2019, when you pull your sales report, your profit and loss, and you see your income for 2019, your award amount will be based on that. So if you have receipts less than $500,000, then you are eligible to receive up to $3,500 as an award. And if you are between $500,000 and $1 million, you can receive up to $5,000. If you are between $1 million and $2.5 million, you're eligible for up to $7,000. And so just to continue on eligibility, you must be a for-profit corporation, LLC, partnership, or sole proprietorship. Again, you have to fit into these categories of industry. So under the bars category there, wineries, breweries, and distilleries are included. You have to have at least one full-time employee or be a sole proprietorship at the time of application. So that's right now as you're putting together your materials. Located in La Plata County. And this one's really important. You have to be able to show at least 20% revenue loss since March 26, 2020, which is when kind of they deem those impacts began from COVID. So, that I'll go through the required documentation, but there are some really easy ways to show that as we move on here. Those that are ineligible are businesses that are not in those industries, those without at least one full-time employee, or if are not a sole proprietorship. Businesses without that 20% revenue loss. So unfortunately, if you don't hit that 20%, you are ineligible. And also nonprofits cannot apply this time around.
Hey, Emily, can I ask you a quick question there?
Yeah.
And something that I should have pointed out for PPP when you're doing this, what are you guys considering revenue? So like when you are applying for second round PPP, you do not need to include PPP money that you got in the first round as revenue in that quarter. So what about grants and PPP and things like that as far as calculating your revenue loss?
Right. So because it's based on sales from 2019 when, none of these grants really existed, my understanding is that we are calculating your sales. So looking at the income to your business from, if you're a restaurant, meals served, gift cards sold, those types of items, not grants. And I'll let Anna jump in if I'm getting anything wrong there.
No, that's correct. And they term it as receipts. So it's really looking at the impact on those revenues your business would normally generate.
Perfect. Thanks for that question, Mary. And so I also want to just do a quick comparison, letting folks know that this is different from La Plata Cares, and you can apply for both. So last year, Local First also administered another round of funding through the county. Both of these are completely separate, so don't worry about duplicating or concerned about whether you can only apply for one. You can apply for both, and it just works a little bit differently. So in terms of eligibility, again, you need that one full-time employee. This is not a reimbursement, so it's not based on receipts for specific expenses. It's based on those sales numbers. So feel free to, can always ask questions if you have a specific concern around that, but it just functions a little bit differently. And then, of course, it is the same that businesses have to be independently owned and operated in La Plata County.
Emily, I'm going to jump in really quickly one more time just to say I know we have come up on the end of our hour. We're going to keep going. If you can stay with us, thank you. If you cannot, we are going to send out the recording of this to everyone who attended today, so you won't miss anything.
Perfect. Thanks, Mary. And so I just wanted to run through with folks the required documentation so you have a sense of what you need to submit in order to complete your application. So what we need from you to see kind of on our end to make sure you're ticking all those boxes are your Colorado account number, which is available on your state tax form, the proof of payment of unemployment insurance payroll taxes, the evidence of number of full-time employees at the time of application. So for both of those, that second and third bullet, just submitting your most recent payroll is a really good option because we can see who your employees are, how many hours they have, and that you're paying that state insurance payroll tax. Additionally, we need proof of good standing with the Secretary of State of Colorado, your W-9 IRS form, and then proof of operations on or before March 26, 2020, evidence of annual receipts for the applicable year. So that's, again, those sales numbers. Businesses in operation prior to January 1st, 2020 have to show us that 20% revenue loss due to restrictions. And so one thing I think for those last three bullets, it's really effective just to show us a 2019 profit and loss or sales report right next to a 2020 profit and loss and sales report. Makes it easy to calculate the 20%, shows us that you were operating before March 26th, and it's those evidence of annual receipts. So also I'll note that if you were not in operation prior to January 1st, you don't have to show that 20% loss. We just need to see your 2020 profit and loss statement. So no need for that 2019 if you weren't in operation in 2019. And so then the application process, what you do is go to our website, local-first.org/La Plata Relief. Once you're there, you can click apply here and it will take you to a Word document, which is our application. Fill that out with all of your information, compile the needed documentation, which is all listed on there as well, and then submit that completed application to La Plata Relief at local-first.org by 5 p.m. on February 1st. And so that's all I have. I don't know if there are any
Awesome.
questions.
Can we hold questions and just let Mary Jo quickly talk about the equivalent program? And before I do that, before we move to Mary Jo, I did want to point out that Kim Euler is on our call here as well. We are partnering with the chamber on this. They are actually going to do another PPP kind of in-depth as we understand the rules to finalize later this month, I think January 28th. And I'm going to let her talk about that here at the very end, if you don't mind, Kim. And we will send out that information once they have it to everybody as well. But Mary Jo, why don't you go ahead and quickly tell us kind of the equivalent program that they're doing in Archuleta County.
Sure. Thank you, Emily, for doing such a great job because I've lost my computer and so I have no documents to share. So thank you so much for it being very complete. What I have done is I've put in the chat the email address that you would send our applications to. It is truly just mirroring almost, because it is a state program, what La Plata County is doing. So in the chat will be the email address. I think it's important, as Emily mentioned, to know that are businesses. We have several here that just started or were purchased right at the beginning of the year. I know one business that is in this category that opened up and I think 2 days later had to shut down. So, you know, we want to make sure that we capture these businesses. One of the other points that I'd like to make is also remember that there are a lot of programs out there, and our businesses should not be leaving money on the table. Again, this does not preclude, if you've applied for, it's not as much money certainly as you would get from PPP or EIDL, but it could cover a payroll or it could cover a month's rent. That is all really important. It's money available to you. The other key word in here is it's grant money. So it is not money that has to be repaid. So our business community really should be applying for these additional grant programs, both in La Plata County and Archuleta County. If anybody on the call is from Archuleta County, please feel free to give us a call here at the Chamber of Commerce. And I can put that information, I think most people have it tattooed on their arms, but if not, give us a call here at the Chamber or email us at director@Pagosa Chamber, and I will be happy to help you or point you in the right direction for any of these programs. We have a great relationship with the SBDC, and we'll be happy to get you in touch with a consultant. As Emily and Anna mentioned, the due date is February 1st, and it is a quick turnaround time of money. There is a group here that will review the applications. Ours is more an attestation, and so just know that if the reviewing group does have questions on your application, we will be contacting you for those P&Ls or any other additional forms. So again, thanks, Emily. I'm sorry I would be mimicking your screen shares. So thanks so much. Just know the similar programs in both counties.
Awesome. Thank you, Mary Jo. And that's what I wanted to really get at. And thank you again, Emily, for putting the information on the kind of requirements out there for both counties. But just wanted to make sure everybody knew that this was something that was available in also Archuleta. And I would agree with Mary Jo. There are so many opportunities out there for different grants. We have a running list that's actually being combed on a regular basis and cleaned up by OEdit. If you need a copy of a link to that, let us know. But the OEdit website is keeping track of both private and government grants that are available to businesses. So Kiki knows where that is as well. I saw her face just pop up, so feel free to outreach us here at SBDC. So yes, I apologize. I should have introduced Kim Euler, the new managing director for the chamber at the beginning of this. Kim, will you share with us what you guys are planning on PPP? And, you know, again, both Mary Jo and Kim, we really, really appreciate the relationship that we have with the chambers. We certainly know the hard work that you are all doing right now for all the businesses across your communities. And I love all the work that we do together, all the strategizing across all the different economic development groups. I think we really do a great job of that in Southwest Colorado. So Kim, go ahead and introduce yourself because you're new to your position and tell us what you guys have coming up.
Great, thanks Mary. So appreciate you putting this together. It's been fantastic information, so very timely too. So very much appreciate it. I'm the new manager with the Durango Chamber of Commerce. I've been here for about a month, so pretty exciting, but we're really pleased to partner with the SBDC on a follow-up to this webinar. It's going to be, navigating the second round of PPP funding. We're going to have some additional speakers from the banking industry, as well as from the accounting industry, as well as other experts. And so it'll be a nice follow-up to this to have questions answered, what we'll know in a couple of weeks. So it's January 28th. It's at 9 a.m. It's a free webinar. Once again, and so if you go to durangobusiness.org, you can register for the event, and we're happy to partner again. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. And again, we're putting out there what we know now. Things will change, things will evolve, but it's also really important once you have your PPP to maybe hear from banking and CPAs on making sure you're using it properly so that you get your full forgiveness. So that's where these continuing, you may rush right now to apply for it, but it is important to continue to attend these webinars and make sure you understand kind of the rules and regulations around the funding once you get it. So yes, thank you for that. So that brings us to the end of our presentations today. Hannah, are there any additional questions that you're seeing that I need to answer?
I saw one. Give me 1 second. Let me pull it up. It was
Awesome.
about PPP.
Okay.
My company got $6,000 for initial EIDL. Will there be an additional $4,000 paid to my business? And do I have to apply? So talking about the advance.
David, do you want to take that?
Sure. Right now, the way we are looking at it and the way the legislation has just been written is the idea on the CARES Act was to give businesses $10,000 as the EIDL advance. So the way it is stated to go forward is whatever amount you got, if it did not equal the 10,000, that they would go back and reach out to the borrower and try to make that 10 grand whole. We are waiting to see how the Disaster Loan Center is going to handle this, but the way the legislation was written now was to make that 10 grand whole for whoever didn't get the entire 10 grand. And that's what, and we're just waiting to see how they're going to do it.
So it could be all businesses, not just targeted businesses.
Correct. It could be all businesses because the idea was to give all businesses the $10,000 advance. And we know a lot of them didn't get it because it was based on employees and whether or not you had 10 employees or not. But now they're coming back and saying that they are going to make every attempt to make that whole for businesses who did not get the 10 grand.
Excellent. Well, like Mary Jo said, money on the table. Let's not leave it there. Awesome. Is that our final question, Hannah?
Yes.
Okay, so I know we are running over, so I don't want to keep everybody longer than we need to. I just want to say thank you to all of our panel members for being here today and helping us with this presentation. I also want to remind everybody that we're here. So please don't hesitate to call us with questions, to email us, or to go on, if you're not already a client, or if you are a client, go on and request a consulting appointment, and we can sit down with you and really look at these programs and how you can apply them and how you apply for them. And all things business. We are not just here for PPP and EIDL. So if you are starting a new business, or if you are strategizing on how to pivot or grow your business, we're here for that too. So thank you all for joining us today. Hannah has been recording this presentation and we will send it out to you. So if you missed any of it or you need to look at it again, please don't hesitate to call with questions and you will receive this. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.